And with these words, we shall continue with our program. We are going to have a next lightning talk, and this contains no questions and answers. So let's keep all the discussions in Stream Chat and Discord. Shipping Ruby and Rails apps as native Linux package. In this presentation, you'll learn how to package a Rails application for the main Linux distributions available. You'll also learn how to host the resulting packages and apply the same recipe to packages a Ruby CLI that can be shipped to users. Our talk is I'm starting to having a problem with the English words again. So let's try again. Cyril Rohr discovered Rails in 2006 and never stopped using it during those years. He loves Ruby and writing tools that help developers ship code more easily. Founder of Packager.io, Bull Preview, and CTO at Gelindi.com. Lives in Brittany, France, and it's your turn now.
Hello and welcome to this talk about packaging Rails applications for Linux. This will be a short talk about how to go from bare code to a deployed application on a server using a Debian package in under 5 minutes. So first, the question is, why bother at all with packages? Because we have Docker, it's great, but in a lot of places, you may not have Docker available. So system packages are still a way to go if you want to deploy apps at, for instance, banks or other kind of enterprises that require them. It's a good thing is that most of the time the packages end up being far smaller than Docker images, so that's less disk space to consume and less things to transfer. And since it's packages, you can rely on system dependencies, and then if you have security updates to these system packages, the Linux distribution will take care of it for you. And the good thing is that most end users and customers are already familiar with packages. They know how to install a package, and being able to just do apt install my application on a server is pretty attractive. And finally, it integrates well with Puppet, Ansible, Chef, if you want to manage a fleet of servers, for instance. So how it works, basically, I published a tool which is called Packager, available on GitHub. It's open source. And what it does, it takes your code, which can be written in Ruby, Node.js, Go, and Python. And it detects the language of your code using the build packs that Euruko uses. And then it does a compilation step, which then outputs a Debian or RPM package, depending on your target, the distribution that you are targeting. And finally, you can take this package and deploy it to a server, any server. And so just so that we can go quickly through the steps, the first step would be to build your package. So basically, you take your code, you run Packager. It can be run as a Docker image, which makes it pretty easy to do. So you just apply Packager on your repository folder. And after a while, it will output a Debian or RPM package, depending on the target distribution that you've used. In our example, we will use Ubuntu 2004. And then you deploy your package. So basically, you provision a server, or you already have a server, and then you connect to it, and then you run apt install the package that was just compiled. And finally, you need to configure and run your package. So Packager automatically includes a CLI tool, which is named after the name of your application, which allows you to easily set environment variables to run arbitrary processes within the context of your application, like a Rails console or Rails task. It also allows you to scale your processes that you have declared in a proc file, as on Heroku. Okay, so for this demo, I already cloned the Git repository containing the code. So as you can see, it's a pretty standard Rails application. And now what I can do is just apply the packager Docker image on the current repository so that it will detect what kind of application it is. So as you see, it detected it. This is a Ruby application. And then it applies the relevant build pack. So that's the same system that Heroku is using. So it will apply the Ruby build pack, and the Ruby build pack will then set up all the gems that are required by the application. It will fetch the required Ruby version as well, and then it will precompile the assets for the application. So here we are. We just generated a new Debian package for our application. So the next step is to set up a server and run the application on that server. So for this, I will quickly provision a new server using the Hetzner CLI, which is pretty nice, because in a few seconds, as you can see, we will get a server provisioned and the IP will be displayed. Yep, here we are. So then I can just SCP my Debian package to this server. Obviously, you can choose any other way to propagate your package, and you can even like publish it to a proper apt repository if you want to. But for this demo, I show you the fastest way to install your application. Yeah. So then we can connect to the server, run apt update to refresh our package repositories. And finally, we can install our package with the apt install command. And we also want to install Nginx so that we get we can expose our service on the port 80. Now we have a CLI available to us, which is named after our app, which is Travel Map. And you can see that you can run some commands to control your application. And in our case, we want to configure our application. So you could, if you use a Postgres database, you could configure the database URL thing using this command or any other environment variable that your application requires. In our case, we'll just use SQLite locally so that it's easier. And but we still want to run the raise db migrate and db seed command. So as you can see, we didn't have to select any kind of Ruby version or go into any kind of repository. We just use the CLI that ships with every package to run arbitrary commands using the correct version of Rails and the correct version of the gems. So yeah, we created the table, and then we can scale our main web process. So the Puma server, we can ask packager to scale it to 1, for instance. And what this does, it will automatically generate and install the init script that allows the process to be automatically restarted if your server reboots, or that allows your system to manage it with, for instance, systemctl. So if I want the status of the travel map web 1 process, then okay, it says it's active, it's running, and it's running on port 6000. So I can quickly check this. And yep, it seems like we're getting something. So just for convenience, we want to set up Nginx, so a one-liner to expose port 6000. And then we just need to reload Nginx. And so finally, if we go to that server, yep, it's running and it's most likely working. So if I ask all the cities around Rennes, which is where I live, I get the expected results. So that concludes our demo. As you can see, not much to do and very fast to both build the package, deploy it on the server, and then configure and run it. The good thing is it's not limited to web application. You can also ship CLI tools with Packager. And there are a lot of other features that you can learn about in the Packager documentation at the address on the screen. So that concludes our demo and the tour of the quick tour of Packager. Just as a recap, it supports basically all Linux distributions, Debian, Ubuntu, Red Hat, CentOS, SUSE Linux, Amazon Linux. That's a project that's been active since 2014. So as I say, it supports a lot of older versions for each distribution. If you want some more automation or want to publish packages on proper apt or yum repositories, you can check out packager.io, which is self-hosted, the hosted version of Packager. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them over Twitter, or if you go on my personal website, westcott.com, then you will find my contact details. Thanks a lot, and I hope you enjoyed the conference, and see you next time.